President appoints 6 Supreme Court judges and 15 Appeal Court judges. Arjuna Besekara appointed as the President of the Court of Appeal. Mahara prison death toll rises to 11. 117 injured. Relatives of inmates gather at the hospital and demand information. How did psychedelic drugs prescribed for mental patients enter the prison? Police launch a probe. Heavy showers in many areas including the north and the east. Depression in the Bay of Bengal to intensify into a storm in the next 24 hours.
Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. Let's start off with your top story for the day. 21 new justices of the superior courts were sworn in before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today.
6 justices of the Supreme Court, the new President of the Court of Appeal and 14 justices of the Court of Appeal were sworn in before the President. According to a communique by the President's media division, addressing the event, the President had assured that he will be committed to protect the independence of the judiciary and prevent political intrusions into the judicial arm. The President said that it is a matter of pride to have been able to increase the number of justices of the superior courts at a time when laws delays are one of the most long-standing issues in the country. The President had stressed on the need for transparency to instill in the people a sense of trust in the justice system of the country. The swearing-in ceremony was attended by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara and Chief Advisor to the President Lalith Veeratunga.
The Mahara prison unrest figured heavily in Parliament today. I would like to know who will be answering because the State Minister of Prisons who answered yesterday is absent today.
Do not hesitate just because the minister in charge was changed. The previous government did so when the budget was being debated. That is their power based on the constitution. I have a right to know which subject minister will be responding to my queries. More than 80% of the inmates at the Mahara prison are in remand custody. They have not been convicted before any competent court. Regardless to say, no one bears the right to kill a convict. They are attempting to justify this by saying those who were killed were drug smugglers. The most serious issue here is, of the rapid antigen tests that were carried out on 40 injured inmates who were admitted to the hospital, 26 have tested positive for COVID-19. It has risen to 38 by today. 70% of the inmates are now COVID-19 patients. Cases were not heard in court for nearly 11 months. Those who were remanded for 1 or 2 months were imprisoned for more than 7 months. When medical reports revealed on the 29th of last month that 183 inmates at the prison had contracted COVID-19, an unstable situation occurred at the prison and relatives of the inmates had also arrived at the prison. The only demand of the prisoners was to direct them to PCR tests and provide them with the minimum safety standards in order to avoid them contracting the virus. However, reasonable suspicions arise as to whether this unrest occurred due to the inmates' appeals not being heard. According to the Code of Criminal Procedure, a judicial inquest must be conducted on all deceased inmates. What are the results of these inquests? What is said on the reports? Will the remains be handed over to the relatives? The relatives have a right to be informed of how the deaths occurred. What could happen next is they could assume the deceased were COVID-19 patients and bury the bodies, covering up the crime. We need a clear answer to it, Honourable Speaker. A crisis has occurred at present as to who has been harmed and who has died. There is no such clarification on the matter. Vimal Veerawansa revealed of a more dangerous situation. He spoke of an international conspiracy. When a person such as him claims this is a conspiracy, the government should probe the matter. He also claimed the prisoners acted violently because they were under the influence of a certain pill. Not only the prisoners, Honourable Speaker, we feel most of the MPs and ministers in this government are under the influence of this pill named reverse, because this government seems to be moving backwards. I have already appointed a 5-member committee headed by retired High Court Justice Kusala Sarojini Veerawardena. They will conduct a comprehensive investigation into the incident and provide us with a full report within a month, with an interim report being provided in a week. We will divulge the information when it is received. Apart from that, the IGP has directed the CID
to begin a probe into the matter. All parties agreed that this should not have occurred. We express our deep regret regarding the situation. However, I intend to provide a written document rather than speaking to you about it.
ඉන්න මට කටින් එන දේවල් කියනකට වැඩිය ලිඛිතව ඒව අරගෙන වාර්තාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා කෙටි කාලයක් අපිට ලබා දෙන්නයි කියලා ගෞරවණීය ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා. දැන් මීගමුවේ ගරු ඇමති
Honorable Minister, there are inmates in Negombo who are protesting. They are in fear. Please direct your attention to it immediately.
මුකරන්න 637 people that been given on a general amnesty. Then we have discussed with all various stakeholders, including the police and the Honorable Attorney General, and also the Judicial Service Commission, in order to expedite the process of granting the bail. And there is a problem there. Even after granting the bail, they were to be quarantined for 14 days. Now we are looking at the possibility of, rather than quarantining in that places, straight away send them to their houses and to home quarantine. So several measures have been taken in.
3 more inmates who were injured during the clash at the Mahara prison succumbed to their injuries today. The death toll of the incident rose to 11. Director of the Colombo North Teaching Hospital, Indragama, said that 117 people who were injured in the clash are receiving treatment at the hospital. 51 of the injured were subject to PCR tests and 38 of them tested positive. Relatives of the inmates at the Mahara prison gathered opposite the Colombo North Teaching Hospital, demanding for information on the inmates who succumbed to their injuries.
අපිට පුළුවන් මොනාර විස්තරයක් අන්දින්න සර්. උදාර එක්කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා නම තියනවා අනිත් දෙන්නගේ නම නැහැ. කකුල් කඩන්නයි මරන්නයි. එහි යන්න දෙන්න එක්ක බලන්න හරි දෙන්න ඕනි. ඡන්ද ගත්තේ අපි මේ ටික කරන්නද අපේ දරුවා මරලා දාන්නේයි. අපිට කුඩු හැදුවානේ. අපි කුඩු හැවුවද අපි කාටද කියන්නේ දෙන්න කියන්න පුතේ පිටිදෙනවා. අපි මොකද කරන්නේ? වෙච්ච මිනිස්සුගේ ලක් කියන්නේ.
Meanwhile, security has been tightened at the Mahara prison. Relatives of the inmates gathered opposite the Mahara prison again today. A few ambulances were seen leaving the premises of the Mahara prison. The riot squads were deployed to the prison today and they left the premises this evening. The prisons department and the police convened a joint media briefing to clarify the details of the incident at the Mahara prison. The inmates at the remand prison faced this incident while they were being served food. About 1,600 suspects from 3 units broke through their doors and gathered at the front gate of the prison. They were demonstrating, asking to be tested for COVID-19. The superintendents of prisons, the chief jailer, the assistant superintendent and a group of officers had gone and spoken to them. The inmates had surrounded them to attack. All of them gathered at the prison gate and attempted to escape. They attacked officials with poles and stones, invaded the main entrance of the prison and attempted to escape. We had to fire rubber bullets at them. The prisoners were still not under control. These 1,600 prisoners then invaded the door and kept on advancing. We had to use more force to control them. There is a dispensary at the prison hospital. There is a medicine storage facility here. There was a large stock of psychedelic drugs prescribed for mental patients. The inmates had taken and consumed all these drugs. These inmates became very violent after consuming the drugs. They were extremely violent and fought among each other. They set fire to the main prison complex, the kitchen, the storage facility and the prison hospital. They held 2 prison officials hostage and had severely assaulted one of them. They attempted to dig the walls and escape even last night. They were planning to escape.
ඊයේ දවසේත් ඔහු උත්සාහ කරා ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේත් බිත්තිය හරන්න පැන යාමට තමයි මොවුන්ගේ අදහස තිබ්බේ.
Meanwhile, police spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana said that the inmates had used 21,000 psychedelic pills before the clash at the prison.
දල වශයෙන් මේ රෝහලේ මානසික ආතතීන් තියෙන මානසික රෝගීන්ට දෙන පෙති.
It is reported that there were approximately 21,000 psychedelic drugs that are prescribed to mental patients at this prison. These pills can be used as a substitute to drugs like cocaine and heroin. Why was there such a large stock of psychedelic drugs or drugs prescribed for patients with mental disorders kept at the prison? Who ordered such a large stock of these drugs? Investigators have directed their attention towards the conduct of a doctor at the prison. Who instigated them? Investigators are also focused on this matter as well. DIG Ajit Rohana has withdrawn from the 5-member committee investigating the incident at the Mahara prison, headed by retired High Court Judge Kusala Sarojini Veerawardhana.
ගරු අධිකරණ ඇමතුමාට ලිපියකින් දැනුම් දුන්නා.
I wrote to the Minister of Justice and requested him to appoint another officer in my stead. The reason for my withdrawal from the committee is because I always speak to the media and my presence in this committee might hinder my ability to speak to the press.
මේ සම්බන්ධ අදහස් ප්‍රකාශ කරන නිසා
Meanwhile, during the press briefing held to announce cabinet decisions, Minister Keheliya Rambukwala said the government takes the full responsibility for the incident.
We take full responsibility as the government. However, considering this as an isolated incident is unjustified according to my personal belief. Although the security forces and the prison intelligence conduct investigations regarding illegal drugs, we have noticed that the illegal drug peddling takes place to some extent. Therefore, we will be taking all necessary action to eliminate it. This might be a result of some sort of resistance towards the actions taken to fight the drug menace within prisons. However, at this juncture, we can't state that these are facts.
අභියෝගයක් හැටියට යම් සිදුවීම් වෙනමයි කියන එක අපිට කියනවා. සියලු දේ අපිට මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න බෑ.
සාධාරණ ඉල්ලීම් වලට
Why isn't the government lending an ear to a reasonable request? Prisons are not breeding grounds for animals. The prisoners must be treated as humans. Their punishments will be meted out by courts. That can be decided through a judicial process. Up until now, many details have not been disclosed on the Valikada prison riots. The individuals responsible for the incident are out at large. Do not try to repeat history at the Mahara prison. A group including attorney at law Achala Senaviratna filed a complaint at the Human Rights Commission on the unrest at the Mahara prison, seeking an impartial investigation into the incident.
The officials have to take grave decisions when 2,000 to 3,000 inmates are attempting to break into the armory. If the inmates did not engage in such an act, the fate would have changed. I am not trying to condone this act, but the President made a decision at the Cabinet yesterday to implement a special program regarding large-scale drug smugglers and criminals. When that decision is implemented, this matter will be resolved, hopefully.
If the unrest at the Mahara prison was caused due to the distribution of a pill known as reverse among inmates, why couldn't intelligence units control it? Why are they uttering blatant lies? If an unfavorable situation has arisen, we must face it. Who is going to bear the responsibility for this? We wish to remind that the Ratupasala incident was considered to be part of a conspiracy to unseat the then President Mahinda Rajapaksa. The Valikada prison riots also bore similar motives. We are suspicious whether the people want to unseat Gotabaya Rajapaksa while there are 5 years for him to complete his term.
රටේ ජනතාව එහෙම තීන්දුවක් ගනීවිද කියලා අපිට සැක හිතෙනවා.
The archives at the prison have been torched. Until now, we have not been informed about the inmates who died during the unrest and the cause of their death. Now they are saying the court records will be examined to determine the identity of the individuals who were killed. Only the armory at the prison had not been set on fire. This portrays that the government is conducting itself in a blatant violation of the law.
අනීතියක් ලෙස තමයි දැන් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී මේ රජු විසින් ගෙන යන්නේ. එහෙනම් අපි මානව අයිතිවාසිකම් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කතා කරන අය හැටියට
As advocates for human rights, we have no need to kill anyone. We have done the best we can do under this rule. If we didn't act responsibly, more people would have died. Regardless of the number of deaths, we offer our condolences to the families of the deceased. It doesn't matter if they were suspects or offenders, they are still humans. No one is born an offender. It is the society that makes them wrongdoers. Therefore, we offer our condolences to everyone.
A group of political and civil society activists heavily condemned the Mahara incident at a press briefing held today in Colombo.
According to the inmates, the prison authorities have turned a deaf ear to the demands and the protests of the inmates. Therefore, the inmates have formed a committee and elected their own representatives in order to discuss regarding the prison management. When these representatives arrived to discuss the management, they had been beaten with poles and were seriously injured. The inmates said it was then that they showed their opposition in this way. The police and the prisons department said they broke through the gates and pushed on towards the prison office, and it is then that they attacked them and fired upon them. What is the truth from these two versions? When the fear of death festers a person's mind, that is how they will react. The government can't behave like that. The government must maintain standards. They asked for PCR tests. They were shot earlier when they asked for water. This time they were shot when they asked for PCR tests.
This is not a conspiracy. It is an issue regarding the security at prisons. We saw DIG Ajit Rohana previously say that those who do not conduct PCR tests are traitors. But when people ask for PCR, they are shot and killed. What is this country? People are asking for treatments. This is a country where funds for health are reduced and people are killed.
We now cross over for a short commercial break. More news on the other side.
Do your online shopping now with Bulletin.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Bulletin.lk.
The deep depression in the southeast Bay of Bengal is expected to intensify further to a cyclonic storm and very likely to cross Sri Lanka. Due to this situation, the rainy and windy condition is expected to enhance considerably over the island. The system is very likely to move west-northwestwards and cross eastern coast Sri Lanka between Batticaloa and Point Pedro around tomorrow night. We are now joined by Tarusha Kumar Singh for the latest weather update. Tarusha.
Thank you, Jamal. A very good evening, and a very good evening to all our viewers watching Primetime News on TV1. Jamal, as you pointed out, this deep depression system, this deep depression area is currently lying 400 kilometers away from the southeast of Trincomalee. However, tomorrow is the decisive day. Tomorrow is the significant day, as this deep depression system will slowly intensify into a slight cyclonic storm, and it will, if you can see in this map, as you can follow me, it will enter the country through Point Pedro and Batticaloa, and it will enter the country from the eastern coast of the island, and it will move towards the country. It will stay for a bit, and then it will make its exit through the areas of Vaunia, Trincomalee and Mannar, and slowly head towards the Tamil Nadu coast of India. Now, because of the landfall of this cyclone, provinces of north central, eastern, Uva and northwestern, and especially the western province will receive a rainfall of exceeding 200 millimeters, and strong winds are also predicted to experience in these areas. As you can see, the northern province will be experienced winds 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, north central province 40 to 50 kilometers per hour, and the eastern province 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, northwestern 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, and the western province here in Colombo 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. Now, in light of this situation, the Meteorology Department convened a media briefing earlier this evening to inform the public of this extreme weather situation that we are to embark. The Director General of the Department of Meteorology, Atula Karuna Nayaka, had this to say in the media briefing.
It is clear that this deep depression system will develop into a cyclonic storm. The pressure zone will be moving towards the western province and the northwestern province. We predict landfall by tomorrow evening. Due to the direct impact of the storm, dark skies and heavy showers will be expected in the northern province, north central province, eastern province, Uva province, northwestern province, and especially in the western province. On the 26th of December in the year 2000, a cyclone of this nature made landfall. Even then, heavy rains and gale winds were reported in the island. Therefore, we would like to advise the general public that the same kind of incessant rain and strong winds could be expected in the coming days. When a cyclone makes landfall from the sea, there is a possibility that the sea water might reach the surface. But the people should not panic thinking it is a tsunami situation.
Meanwhile, upon the warnings issued by the Met Department, fishermen in the provinces of North and East have refrained from setting out to sea.
Earlier on in the day, Newsfirst reported that in light of this inclement weather, all schools in the eastern province has been shut down. According to our correspondents stationed in Jaffna, Batticaloa and Mannar, right now those areas are experiencing light showery conditions as well. Right now we are crossing live to Newsfirst Senitha Senanayaka to know as to what is happening in Trincomalee. Senitha?
Right now I'm in the coast of Trincomalee, and throughout today this area experienced some heavy rainfall and very strong winds. Now other than that, the oceans of this area appear to be very strong as well. Now because of this, the fishermen of this area refrained from setting sails throughout the day. We're ready to give you more updated information about the weather conditions of the east coast. Until then, I'm Senitha Senanayaka reporting for News First.
The Met Department advised fishing and naval communities not to set out to sea and to be vigilant of in the coming few days. And our reporters are currently stationed in Trincomalee, and they will bring you the latest of what will transpire in the few days to come. Situation here in Colombo, however, earlier on in the evening we experienced some heavy and dark skies earlier on this evening. What we have to tell you is be vigilant, be careful, be mindful, and Jama, carry an umbrella if you are stepping out. It's back to you.
Thank you very much, Tarush, for that detailed update. Moving on in more local news, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa reiterated the government's commitment towards servicing its debt obligations.
The President made these remarks while addressing the 20th Sri Lankan Economic Summit, which commenced virtually this morning.
A significant issue in Sri Lanka's current economic context is the extremely high debt burden we are faced with. The large volume of pending debt repayments is a matter of concern. It is important to stress, however, that Sri Lanka has always met its debt obligations on time and in full, and that we will continue to do so. Nevertheless, our over-reliance on loans must come to an end. That is why the focus of the government is on fostering investments.
I know the relationship between India and Sri Lanka is special. We have undertaken a lot of steps in the recent past to be actively engaged with Sri Lanka. We are also building good connectivity between the two economies. The air link between Jaffna and Chennai, and also the ferry services, which can be improved even further, are all signs of the people-to-people contact, which with positive engagement can bring in a lot of difference to the two economies. I also understand through the RBI there is a currency swap arrangement with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, which during the pandemic, occurring probably in July 2020, to the extent of about $400 million. We also have, I think, some new initiatives through which about $100 million of line of credit is extended. The bilateral partnership has the potential to benefit from the measures announced by the Sri Lankan 2021 budget, especially steps aimed at encouraging FDI and promoting manufacturing.
The Cabinet has decided to pursue alternative methods of sourcing funds for government projects instead of resorting to loans.
We have taken a decision to refrain from obtaining loans for any projects in the future. Instead, we will offer BOT proposals where projects will be developed and implemented and then be handed over to the government. The other method is BOO, where the project will be owned by them once it is implemented. The next method is PPP, where we work under an agreement between a group of trustees and the government. The final is foreign investments. We hope to resort to these methods in the future.
Lohan Ratwatta is due to be sworn in as the State Minister of Prison Reforms and Prisoners Rehabilitation before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa tomorrow.
Lohan Ratwatta serves as the State Minister of Gem and Jewellery related industries. The State Ministry of Prison Reforms and Prisoners Rehabilitation was previously held by Dr. Sudarshani Fernandopulle. Meanwhile, Amita Gamage, the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the National Gem and Jewellery Authority, has resigned from his position. Speaking to Newsfirst, a spokesperson at the authority said Amita Gamage had tendered his resignation yesterday. Amita Gamage assumed duties as the chairman of the National Gem and Jewellery Authority on the 30th of December 2019. Tilak Veerasinghe assumed duties at the ministry yesterday as the acting chairman of the National Gem and Jewellery Authority. Susantha Ratnayaka, the chairman of the Board of Investment, has also resigned from his post. It was reported that Susantha Ratnayaka took on the role of BOI chairman with the understanding of serving for the period of 1 year, and given that the time has lapsed, requested to be relieved from his role from His Excellency the President.
Minister of Education Professor G.L. Pires said that the ordinary level examination scheduled to be held in January will have to be further postponed. He made this statement in Parliament today.
අමාරු තීරණයක් ගන්නට සිදු වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ තීරණය ගන්න සිදු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ පොදු සහතික සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ.
We have no choice but to make this tough decision. 621,000 candidates will be sitting for the GCE ordinary level exam. As of now, we have set the 18th of January to the 28th of January next year as the dates for the exam. We won't be able to open other schools in the first week of December. I believe that it is unfair to hold the exam on the days we have decided to hold it. All candidates will be sitting for the exam, won't be able to attend classes. Against such a backdrop, the suitable decision is to postpone the exam. We will be analyzing the health situation of the country in every 2 weeks. I have to emphasize that when deciding the date of the exam, we will be given a preparation time of 6 weeks for the candidates.
Let's now take a look at the latest COVID-19 updates.
Another 257 COVID-19 patients recovered today and 268 new cases were identified. Today, the total number of COVID-19 cases reported in the country is at 24,255. No deaths have been reported today. Today, the number of COVID-19 patients who recovered stands at 17,817. While a debate was held in Parliament regarding the budget of the Ministry of Education, associations of school principals held a protest today at the Parliament roundabout against salary anomalies and a few other grievances. The group at the protest pointed out that the amount of money allocated for education through next year's budget is inadequate.
As we were promised, the salary anomalies need to be withdrawn from the budget. Earlier, Minister G.L. Pires submitted a proposal to Parliament that is a completely false proposal. Without reserving the money for the budget, Minister G.L. Pires suggested an additional allowance until the salary anomalies are removed from the budget. When a question regarding this was asked by MP Shantha Bandara against our protest, we must clearly state that there are no funds allocated from the budget for an allowance. If this allowance is paid in January of 2020, where are the funds allocated for this? These are lies. There is nothing allocated for the teachers. The first grade is being paid 15,000 rupees. The second grade is being 10,000. The second grade is paid 10,000 rupees. The third 5,000. The first grade for the principal service is being paid 17,500 rupees. The second 12,500 rupees. The third grade in the principal service is paid 7,500 rupees. These amounts have been proposed. For the ministry to grant this proposal, it will cost them 2.3 billion rupees per month. For a year, they need 32 billion. We ask Minister G.L. Pires, is this money being granted to the Treasury in the budget being presented in Parliament today?
Leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa, arrived at the site of the protest and heeded the people's grievances as well.
Sri Lanka's geopolitics.
A number of incidents that affect the geopolitical balance between the United States, India, China, Japan, Russia and Sri Lanka were reported today. What are those events? Let's now take a look at those incidents.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa spoke about the creation of a digital, unified, single-window clearance system for investments. The president made these remarks while addressing the 20th Economic Summit conducted virtually this morning.
I note with interest that our closest friend and partner, India, is in the process of setting up a digital unified single window clearance system so that access to regulators, policymakers, and facilitators will all be available at one point for investors.
While there are talks of a digital unified single window clearance system, the construction of the fifth phase of the Jaya container terminal has been handed over to a Chinese company. The Sri Lanka Ports Authority will be spending $32 million for the project.
We know that the Chinese are very capable of doing this, and we would like to see a wonder here. Within our expected time limit is about 1.5 years. Within 6-7 months, we are sure that you are going to do it.
While the construction of the fifth phase of the Jaya container terminal of the Colombo port was handed over to a Chinese company, the US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, met with the Minister of Fisheries, Douglas Devananda.
Discussions held at the Ministry of Fisheries focused on national reconciliation, the provincial council system, and a number of other matters. Minister Douglas Devananda informed the US Ambassador that national reconciliation and the political aspirations of the Tamil community can be achieved through the provincial council system. The US Ambassador said that the United States is fully committed to national reconciliation and sustainable development. The ambassador added that the United States is also committed to alleviate the living standards of the fishing community in Sri Lanka.
While this project was discussed in Parliament today, 3 Russian military vessels have docked at the Trincomalee port. The Sri Lankan Navy said that the trio of Russian ships arrived in Trincomalee for replenishment and crew rest. The guided missile cruiser Varyag, large anti-submarine ship Admiral Penteleev, and medium motion tanker Peshenga of the Russian Federation arrived at the port of Trincomalee on the 30th of November. The 3 ships are scheduled to leave the island on the 3rd for their next port of call after taking part in a passage exercise with the Sri Lanka Navy ship Syra.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jaimal Ratnayaka, along with our sign language interpreter for tonight, joining us via Zoom, Brian De Cruz. Take care, stay safe, and good night.